Awesome. Thank you for the really nice introduction. So today, I get the lovely opportunity to speak with these three experts in scams today. And you guys are in for a real treat because I'd like to call them all scammers, but I don't know if that's properly appropriate here.
Anti-scammers.
Yes, exactly. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So we're going to do some quick intros here real quick. What we're going to do is we're all going to kind of introduce ourselves. We're going to talk about what we do, where we work, and to spice it up a little bit, I'm going to ask the question of how did you get scammed? So I'll go first. So my name's Heidi. I'm on the special investigations team at Coinbase. Our role is to identify any sort of terror funding, sanctions evasion, high volume money laundering, like looking into big hacks to make sure we don't have exposure to it, or them rather. And how did I get scammed? Well, it happened actually just last week. So I had invested in these really cute anime-like girls. They were called Kyoto Angels. They were on Polygon. They were really effing cute. And I had shilled these things to a whole bunch of my friends. Been like, you guys need to buy in. They're less than $20. Get in. They're so cute. They're great profile pics, right? Okay, so we all buy in. This was like back in April. My friend then DMs me last week and is like, Heidi, I'm on OpenSea right now, and like my profile picture isn't there anymore. It's black. And she clicks on it and she's like, it says that they delisted it. And I'm like, oh no, this is a bad sign, right? So I then immediately go to the website because I'm like, okay, if they exit scam, if they rugged us, right, the website's gotta be down. The website's still there. And then I'm like, oh shit, okay, well I'll go to the Discord, right? Thinking, oh no, okay, maybe it's still around. It's not around anymore. Even worse, I then decide to be the person that I am, and I look on the blockchain, and sure enough, they had cashed out of all of their proceeds, and it was so painful. Anyways, that's how I got wrecked just last week. Liat, you next.
Hey everyone, so I'm Liat. I'm the CMO at DeviantArt. For those of you who aren't familiar with DeviantArt, we are the world's largest online art community. We have over 70 million users. We host over 500 million pieces of art on the platform. And we've come into Web3 through technology and services for protection for creators against art theft and NFT scams, which I'm sure we'll get into more in a minute. I think I'll share one of the first scams that we felt as a team. So about a year and a half ago, really when like the NFT market was really exploding and everything was really, really hot, we had an incident where a long-term artist from our community, her name is Kin Hang, or Kinny is her username on DeviantArt, unfortunately passed away. And after Kinny passed away, scammers made NFTs out of her artwork and sold them. And that was a really devastating moment for the DeviantArt community, for all of her fellow creators, to see her and her art abused in that way. And for us as a team, it was also kind of a really pivotal moment for us, because that was the point that we decided to utilize technology that we'd already built for a long time for DeviantArt, for our own platform against art theft, and utilize that for the blockchain as well, which kind of brought us to where we are today.
Awesome. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. I know this sounds a little bit like a confessional, but I'm sure everyone in this room has been scammed. Jake, tell us about you and how you've been scammed.
Hi everyone, I'm Jake from QuantStem. I'm a senior research engineer from QuantStem, where most of my job is really actually helping people get a contract at the best date, like the last talk just happened. I don't really have a long confessional in like how I got scammed, at least with NFT stuff, because like I'm a little bit too much of a coward to get scammed. Like I don't click on like suspicious links and shit. Like even if it sounds too good, I'm like, this is probably too good. And I don't, like, I made a linear gain in the last bull market where everyone's making exponential gains, right? But if I had to think of a scam, like, the closest thing I can think of is like, yeah, I got catfished a few times on Tinder. And some of you laugh, like I see that it's been happening to you as well. It's a kind of scam, so like that's the most recent time I got wrecked, I suppose.
Nice. Sometimes those Tinder scams can also lead to crypto scams. I don't know if you guys have met people who are like, hey, there's this Forex I really want to get into and I love you so much. You need to invest. Christian, how about you? Tell us about yourself and how you got scammed.
Sure. So my name's Christian. I am a former employee of Coinbase. So
R.I.P.
I was a blockchain researcher back then. I'm still a blockchain researcher, but now I'm a private blockchain researcher. So if you're interested in talking, feel free to chat with me after the talk. But what I worked on mostly at Coinbase was doing a lot of blockchain analytics, similar work to what Heidi does. While she does more like investigations work, I sort of help build out the pipelines that fuel her late night investigations into various, illicit activities. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool job. My favorite scam, probably the worst one I ever fell for, was this thing we like to call imposter mint phishing, where when you go to mint, I think MetaMask patched it, but for some reason, there was this scam where if you prefixed your input data with a sig hash of the minting function, on MetaMask, when you go to sign the transaction, in the data column, it'll say it's a mint call. But actually, all you're doing is sending money, like it's a normal EOA transfer, to another address. And basically, it looks like you're minting, but you're actually just sending money to them. So yeah, that's how I lost 0.4 ETH. Fun fact. So.
It's okay, Christian. Me too. Me too. I have a lot of feelings about that. So let's go ahead and get into questions. Jake, you're up first. How do people fall for scams to begin with?
Oh, wow. I think this is a topic that extends even outside of NFTs or Web3, really, right? Well, to set a stage, like to define scams, I define that anything that is not an exploit or a hack from the smart contract perspective. Like everything is running as perfectly as it is. Maybe they got a constant audit and everything is good, and you guys are using it, or maybe there was a link posted somewhere and something happens, right? This is kind of what happens most of the time. What happens most of the time is the fact that like there's going to be a lot of honeypotting and a lot of phishing that goes on. It's the same thing that happens with like when you have like suspicious bank apps or links and all that. But the nice thing is that they actually know what they're targeting here, especially in the bull market. They know everyone's like, all right, I gotta click this because this is gonna make 1,000x. Or like, hey, Bored Ape is gonna drop this thing. I'm the first person to click on this. I'm gonna make all that money. And they know that. They know everyone's looking for these things, you know? And so they post this enticing links, and sometimes, you know, they may even hack into the Twitter or like the Discord or the Instagram accounts of all these people. And they set up these scams over here. So like these honeypots and these phishing ones are the ones I would say is the most common. And statistically speaking, I think it's about 69% of all cases.
Yeah, those are really rough. And honestly, with the Discord scams going around right now, fun fact, a lot of them are actually run by the same people, because once you get good at scamming, well, you got a business there, right? And you can create a whole team that builds on top of that.
They have it to a science.
Yep.
It's probably like around 20 people. Actually, one of the last projects I worked on was investigating these scammers. And we found through blockchain analytics that, you know, most of them were actually sending to the exact same addresses on different exchanges like KuCoin or Binance, which, you know, is pretty interesting to me. Yeah, if you actually go on Etherscan and you like, if you ever like look at like phishing contracts, Etherscan will label them as phishing. You can like track where they go if you just like look at where they're sending to. And if you like go all the way down, you'll eventually find like their cash out point, most of the time at KuCoin. And Heidi and I found there was about like 20 or so distinct scammers on Discord.
Yeah, but ultimately scammers need to cash out of their bags, right? They're not going to keep their money in ETH or whatever have you for long. They might try to recycle that ETH, which is really common, right? Where they then just use that ETH to then set up and spin up the new scam. But ultimately, they got a ton of money, right? They need to get rid of it. What are they going to use? Exchanges, right? Well, okay, we talked about what is a scam. We talked about, you know, how scammers kind of operate, how people fall for scams, but who actually gets hurt in a scam?
So rarely everyone. Obviously the buyer, we're all coming from the perspective of various scams that we've fallen for. You think you're buying something, it turns out not to be real, to be fake, to be something else. You lose your money, your art, or whatever it is. But I will make a big statement and say that really I think who gets hurt beyond just the buyer, the creator whose art it was originally, was all of us and like the Web3 community at large, because this just ends up putting people off of the space, and we end up having less adoption, less people participating. You know, we're still at early days. There's so many creators and consumers who still are not in the space. So I think, from our perspective, at the end of the day, Web3 is a community. We're a big community these days, but you really have to give a shit about your community and take care of them. And I think in the last year, a lot of platforms got caught up in the hype and the growth and the opportunity there of big money and forgot about putting in those checks and balances and those layers of protection for their community, for their users. So, that's where we've been focused. We released an open protocol that we encourage everyone to participate in. It's for communicating trust-related issues around NFTs. We all need to come together as an ecosystem where we are platforms and we're enjoying growth and prospering in the space. We also need to take care of the rest of the community and use what we're able to do to give back and be good members of the Web3 community.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So thank you for letting me pitch us a little bit, but just look us up, Protect Protocol.io. Really, I think that the idea is that as platforms and players in the space, a lot of us have information that we know that really should be public information for everyone. So, we have AI technology that we use to identify potential art infringements, alert our creators and artists to it, and then they can report claims through the protocol. So if you're thinking of buying an NFT, you can come to the Protect Protocol site, just search that contract ID, and if there are any claims out about it, you'll see, right? And then you can decide for yourself if you actually want to invest in that NFT, that collection, whatever it is.
And this is all open source and on the blockchain?
All open source, so check us out.
Nice, nice. So I'm going to actually pass it on to Christian now because, great, we have these tools out there, right, that can help us kind of identify scams, right? But, for example, like the DeviantArt tool, but how else can you protect yourself from a scam?
Yeah, I think, again, like I mentioned, I spent the last couple of months working on investigating these Discord scams so we could better protect users. Well, you know what I mean. One thing we found, so actually what I did was we had a group of contractors actually just go into Discord scams. Like we said, go to every new mint, let them DM you, and then if it's like a copycat mint, click on it, and then see like what the address is. And at the same time, we also took some screenshots and stuff. And so I have we used to have like a collection of like 700, maybe I think it's like close to 1,000 now, Discord scams. And so like I mentioned, there's like a lot of the similar patterns happen over and over again. It's like the same people doing the same thing. They actually have a bot, I'm pretty convinced, to like generate these websites on the fly. And like I'm pretty sure it's like a pre-made template because they all look the same. And so, not that you guys would ever click on it, but maybe your friends would, and you can tell them these things like on these like copycat, imposter, mint sites. Usually they'll have a couple things. The most important thing that I've noticed was they have this call to action. So usually there's like a minting completion bar, which I think happens in real mints too, but usually for the imposter ones, they'll be like close to full, like 900, and it'll be counting down really fast. But it won't be counting down like in like a weird like real progress bar way. It'll be like 900, 901, 902, like you're about to, like if you don't mint now, you're not gonna get it, right? Fun fact, I actually saw one go past 1,000. Like it was 900 out of 1,000, and it went to like 1,200 out of, yeah. And then one time integer overflowed into -1, which I thought was also funny. So yeah, they're not great programmers, but the call to action I think is a really important one. So like that's like the first hint that maybe something's off. The second thing that I noticed was a lot of the image art they have on there. Usually there's no top bar because they don't want you to navigate away, and then the images in the background, like if they're doing like a Bored Ape or something, it'll be like really pixelated. Or it just won't be like the best of quality. I mean, that could happen on normal mints too, but it especially happens on these scam websites. And then some other things you could look for, obviously go into Discord and social media, like look at their followers. Are they all bots? Like are these actual people who are like talking? That's a good like sort of way to protect yourself, and only go through like validated official links. That's probably the best way to keep yourself safe. Turn off your DMs on Discord, because people will definitely message you, like I've shown. Yeah, I would say like those three things are a pretty good set of ways to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, I want to add to that point, actually. I don't know if you guys have done humanities or some kind of things back in school, but you know, when we used to do history, when you had one source for something, you have to look for multiple sources to verify this is true. Like, it could be the case that, you know, it's on official Twitter of, let's say, Bored Ape or something, right? And they posted some link, and you're like, oh, this is validated, this is verified, it must be true. Therefore, I can click it and go somewhere. And you get wrecked, you know? So one of the tips I'll give to that to add on to what he's saying is that, yeah, it may be validated here, but look for other forms of validation as well. Like, look to get validated on Instagram, on the Discord, ping like one of their managers or something, so that your probability of actually getting wrecked is going to be a lot lower. It's not going to be zero. There's a chance that they could coordinate all of this and make sure that you guys get caught in the web of this, right? But the more layers and the more different sources they use to verify whether an information or message is true or not, increases your chances of not getting wrecked. But I also have to argue that it brings on the other thing, which is that the longer you wait and the more you verify and the more information you get, it means that everyone else is getting that information too, and therefore you may not be the first person to run into this mint or this scam or whatever it is, right? So this is one thing to take note of, is that you kind of give away a lot of the reward in doing so, in waiting and all that, but like you don't get wrecked so much. So like this is the equation that people have to understand. If you want to ape into something, there is a chance you're going to get wrecked. But this is also why like, you make a lot of gains.
100%, right? Like, there's a balance, right? You need to balance out, okay, do I want to FOMO into this, or do I actually want to make sure that what I'm investing in isn't total garbage? One other thing I would recommend, and I got wrecked from this, was let's say you go on one of these mint sites and you're like, oh man, I really got to get ape into this crap, right? Okay, you go and say, approve, I want to interact with this contract, right? You're like, sweet, MetaMask approved, everything. You then want to go ahead and send it money. MetaMask is like, okay, do you want to approve this transaction? Before you approve that transaction, I know you want to click it. I know you really, really want to click that button really badly. But you should copy paste that address that you're looking at into Etherscan or whatever block explorer you're looking at, right? And see what have other people done, right? Because from there, what you're going to be able to tell is, was an NFT actually minted, or did they just call the mint function to an externally owned address? Because that happens all the frickin' time. Anyways, that's one way to protect yourself. Another thing that I was actually just thinking too is a lot of people have some sort of strange, like mysterious belief that a ledger or a Trezor is actually going to save you. It's not. It is not. You are blindly signing with that ledger, right, that you are transacting with a smart contract. And if you ape into a scam, that's a you problem, not a ledger problem. So anyways, I'm happy to chat with you about that like after this. But yeah, clearly I have a lot of feelings about this. Any other thoughts?
Like guys, when you guys like send a bank transaction to someone else, like you check every single thing like 5 times. Well, I do that, you know. I check it 5 times, 6 times. Sometimes I even send $10 for the first time before I send the next one. It's kind of silly, but like you have to check for everything. And they know this. They know that you want to jump into these things, and therefore they made all these things really enticing. They made a counter grow up to grow the FOMO in you, so that you're gonna just throw all this into the winds and just like ape into something. So like they know, and so like understand that they know.
100%. Yeah, and if you guys don't want to bother with all of this like DYOR stuff or do your own research, I suggest just, you know, not being in this space. Just give up. No, I'm kidding.
It's not such hard work. Just do a little bit of homework. Maybe get to know the creators that you're thinking of buying from. Be part of the community that you're trying to support. So it's a little bit of checking. It's a little bit of interacting there and seeing what's going on. Even if like the technical stuff is maybe more complicated for you, you can still connect with other folk and hear what they're saying. And just check, like, who are the creators behind this thing? Where else are they publishing? What other channels is it appearing on? It's not too much work.
Agreed. In fact, actually, that kind of leads to like our last question, which is for everyone, which is, what can the community do more to prevent this kind of stuff? Anyone want to take it?
I'll just put in like the creator perspective. I think, you know, in this world of scams and NFT scams and like what is direct stealing of art and what is maybe just inspiration and like what is fan art and what is the line, I think the more that people credit each other, if you are getting inspiration from something, call it out, give the original artist the credit for it, point to where it came from. If it's fan art, point out that it's fan art. you know, be upfront with what's happening in the space, and if we as buyers look for that stuff when, you know, we're interacting and we're supporting people and NFTs, we can encourage a better ecosystem.
Yeah, I speak from the community from the perspective of the security firms and folks, and I feel like we can do a lot more. It's kind of like what DeviantArt is doing right now with creating these tools over here. And I have to say, like, I've been in crypto since, like, well, the first time I bought a Bitcoin was, like, all the way back in, like, 2012, right? And, like, this is still very complex shit for me. Like, I'm looking at stuff, and, like, things are not very friendly to the regular person. You go on MetaMask and you're like, what is 0x, all these things? You know what, I'm just gonna click it and pray and hope that it ends up in my account someday, right? I think a lot of people are doing that, are not really understanding what's really going on in the process. And like, this is one thing which I want to challenge my firm and also other security firms as well, and definitely Coinbase. And we should make security more of a public good. And we should create like more kinds of tools and things like, it'd be easy, for instance, if a website that is called like, are you verified or is it verified or something, that people can just like take a Twitter link or something, put it up there and see whether it's been validated with all these other things. Like simple tools like that, which could be an easy process for me, but like it'll be really beneficial for like the community. So like, that's what I think we should do more.
Yeah, honestly, like what Liat and her team built at DeviantArt is really cool. When I was first went into my investigation phase for the Discord scams, my first question was like, oh, is there a list of scams out there for NFTs or anything in Web3, really? And there isn't. We could argue that's because no one really knows what a scam is, and some protocols might be scams themselves that are popular. But I think at the end of the day, like as a community, it's really important that we sort of document and make sure we record what happened in the past so that we don't repeat mistakes in the future. And to do that, we should build open source tools like DeviantArt has done, so that we have like a standard protocol to sort of communicate these things to each other. So I mean, basically, I'm just saying, you go. I'm really happy they built it. Like we worked on trying building something similar at Coinbase, but it was like really hard to bootstrap that because I was basically just me trying to find all these scams all over the internet.
And just build together, right? I think for us, the biggest message with the protocol is that, right? Like we never assumed that we could do this by ourselves. We cannot protect the whole ecosystem by ourselves. We can make everyone be better players, but we can be good members of the ecosystem and good part of the community and open the door for other people to work with us.
Absolutely. I think it is all about community at the end of the day. One thing that I do want to mention is you guys are probably in a lot of Discords here, right? One thing that I think is really awesome that some Discords are doing, for example, like Obits, shout out to Obits, by the way, they actually ran this whole entire session on how to not get scammed by talking about seed phrases and how to protect yourself that way, how to protect yourself from social engineering and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's something that you guys could even run just as members of these things, right? Just something to think about. There are also a lot of cool open source tools that you guys can all use. For example, like Dune Analytics. Like let's say you find a scam. For example, I was just looking at a scam last night, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? These scammers probably have done this scam several times over, and sure enough, I wrote a query for it, and turns out they've created over 1,000 contracts since late May, which is wild. So yeah, anyways, there's a lot we can all do, and we all need to kind of come together as a community, but I'm gonna pause here and open it up for questions, if we can do that. Are we allowed to do that? Awesome. Any questions? Yeah, you got fished. Yeah. So what's the difference between the two, and is it kind of the same occurrence where you lose both, or? Do you guys want to take it? I can take it. I don't mind. So yeah, there's a bit of a difference, right? So for example, when you initially send money to something, right, and you lose that money to like some mint phishing scam like Christian was talking about, you just lose that money. But if you're interacting with a smart contract, for example, where you want to trade some airdropped ERC20 tokens that you think are worth something, even though they're worth nothing at all, right? You interact with that contract. What you are actually doing is you are calling a function that essentially allows them to claw all of those ERC20s from your address, right? There are other scams as well, similar to that, which claw all of your NFTs, or even just some of your really rare NFTs, right? And those are more, I would define those more as phishing scams more than anything else, rather than just, catch-all bucket of scam, if that makes any sense. But yeah, happy to chat about that a bit more.
Yeah, that's a pretty common one as well. Like, they make you sign something with the proofs for everything else. I get like a call from like a friend or a buddy every week, every now and then, and they're calling me and crying and be like, oh no, like, can you save all my things? I just signed for everything. And sometimes they lose the entire farm because like, you could accidentally sign a contract that really opens everything up in your wallet to be taken. Which is why it is really, really important, especially when you're signing a transaction, like, actually look at what this is doing. Like, first look at the address, and then, I know it's not very wieldy, but look at like the bytecode that's out there and see whether it kind of corresponds to what you think it should be. These little checks, like, it takes like 2 to 5 minutes, but it could save like your entire wallet. So like, I would do that.
Totally. 100% recommend that, and you might want to take a Solidity course as well, because it'll make you feel a little bit more confident in what the hell you're looking at. One last PSA before we get off stage is if you have been scammed, which I assume probably 90% of you have been scammed because you're in crypto, let's be real here. If you've been scammed, if you're US-based and you've lost a lot of money, I highly suggest you file it with IC3, which is with the FBI. They do actively look into this stuff. They are becoming a little bit more crypto forward. I know that's hard to believe. But yeah, highly recommend. And if you need any sort of suggestions, happy to help. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.